And so our next session is on taking the room's temperature, and I would like to invite Klaus Prochaska, who's our project lead for financial inclusion and climate change, to take this forward. Klaus.
Good morning, everyone. Bula. So I suspect I'm not the only one who really loves their job today. Thank you very much to Reserve Bank of Fiji for inviting us here and for being such a wonderful host and for being just a great team and so easy to work with. So we really appreciate that. It comes from the bottom of my heart. You're a fantastic team. So thanks a lot for coming to this first session on emerging experiences on financial inclusion and climate change. So what I will do in this first session is I will present research that we've been doing across the AFI network on emerging experiences on financial inclusion and climate change. And then we'll have a chance to deep dive into two case studies. The case study of Reserve Bank of Fiji and of Bangladesh Bank, how those two institutions have tackled the topic in their respective countries. But before we do that, we thought it might be good to feel the pulse in the room or take the temperature. And obviously, the pun is intended on a conference on climate change. So we have prepared a few questions for you to answer. So if you could all please take out your smartphones and go to www.menti.com. You see in the line up there. If you could also open the browser, please, on the smartphones that you have and go to this website. If you have a laptop, you also can access the website via your laptop. So there will be a tool for you to answer these questions. And so once you're at the website, it will ask you a code. And so if you could type in the code 380734. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to get to this website and to open the interactive tool. So we have prepared just to see how many people have already logged on and how many people are ready to use this. We have a test question to see if this is happening. So the test question is, why did you sign up for the conference on green financial inclusion? The first answer is to share experiences on relevant policy approaches. The second option, to learn about relevant policy approaches. The third is, why wouldn't I jump at the opportunity to come to Fiji? And the fourth, to refine my firewalking skills. So if you please vote now so that we can see if this is working or not. Answers are coming in. Very good. Very nice. So we're filling up. Okay, so this is good. So DJ Esala, maybe you also want to vote. We have you can go with your smartphone www.menti.com and use the access code. You have it up there in the first line. So very good. So 63% of you say that they would like to learn about policy approaches. 31 want to share. I think that's fair. We also have some that want to try the firewalking. There will be opportunity, maybe tonight. I don't know. But thanks a lot for the test question. This works. So let's move on to the real questions in this session. So we don't want to deal with antivirus. So the first question that we ask is, how does AFI define green financial inclusion? This is a new term. And so we want to make sure to explain what it is that we're talking about. So the options are the following. Green financial inclusion for AFI is increasing individuals and SMEs' access and usage of financial services to build resilience and support mitigation of climate change impacts. That's question one, or the answer one. Yeah? The second option is ensuring that global private and sovereign investment flows give preference to sustainable businesses. Third answer, a way to increase the aesthetic appeal of financial inclusion by adding some color. So please vote now. What do you think is AFI's definition of green financial inclusion? Nobody's into fashion so far. Oh wow, so seems pretty clear. Seems pretty clear. So, oh, we have one fashion fan, so I'm glad. So thanks, by the way, RBF, for making of nice Bula shirts. Tomorrow we'll wear green. Second question. Financial sector regulators should play an important role in climate action. Climate change poses a systemic threat to the financial system, and this is a matter of financial sector stability. The second answer, financial regulators should play a supporting role in climate action. They should ensure that the financial sector plays its role in financing adaptation and mitigation. Third answer, financial sector regulators should play no role at all. Please vote now. So the answers come in. And so I think these answers pretty much reflect the current thinking globally. When we look at the survey that we've taken within the network, it is largely, our members largely take the second option. They play a supporting role. However, we see increasing discussions about central banks actually considering climate change a systemic threat. And so very recently, the European Central Bank came forward and held a speech on the green monetary policy, where the monetary policy of European Central Bank actually took into account climate change. So my sense is that this is an ongoing discussion, and if things continue as they are going right now, I would not be surprised that in the coming years we see an increasing bar on the first answer. But obviously there is no right or wrong. This reflects the discussion as we see it currently globally. So the next question is for financial regulators in this room. So please, the other ones, refrain from voting. My institution has an established position or has enacted specific policies to address climate change by either fostering resilience or facilitating mitigation. The second option is my institution is currently thinking about taking action, but still is evaluating possible choices. And the third option, my institution is unlikely to play an active role in this area in the foreseeable future. So please, only financial regulators answer this question. Vote now. So this is almost a tie, and I think this quite aligns as we see the answers emerging. This aligns with our test question. A slight majority of regulators is here to learn, but also a good chunk of you are here to share experiences, have already made experiences. So I think this is consistent with what's going on in this room. So the next question is, you know, we lean already on the findings on our research that we've done. So regulators, if regulators decide to foster green financial inclusion, the best way would be to provide finance directly or indirectly through lending quotas. This is urgent and justifies interventionist policy. The second option is the best way would be to promote green finance within the financial sector. Capacity building and moral suasion go a long way in making the private sector act. or protect individuals and SMEs from climate change impacts, for example, through credit guarantees or microinsurance or other ways of insurance. So do you want to provide, promote, or protect? Please vote now. So everybody can vote, yes? Regulators and not regulators. This is open to anyone. So we're still waiting for some to make that choice. Okay, so maybe we just have to go through it and then see if we can reset the system. So for now, let's stop at 30. This is an interesting result. Huh? So the majority of you think promotion amongst the financial sector is the way to do it. 37% think interventionist, let's do it. Let's provide finance directly or force bank or encourage bank to do it. And only 10 seem that protection is the way to go. So it's an interesting picture. Obviously, we don't say that either one of those approaches is right or wrong. You can apply all of them or, as you see fit. So it's an interesting answer. We'll explore all of these more. So now, last question here, where we would like you to give an estimation of relevance of the following policy tools for your country. So which of the following ones are relevant? And you have in the voting tool, you can, by swiping the bullet from 0 to 3, give importance to the following policy interventions. So the first rate from 0 to relevant, not relevant, to 3, highly relevant. Climate risk insurance, refinancing facilities for green lending, mandated green lending, credit guarantees, ERM, capacity building, G2P payments, or reducing the reserve ratio or base interest rate to encourage lending after a disaster. So I see you're already voting. I'm actually quite curious what the result will be. We may ask you after this conference, at the end, we may ask you this question again to see if attitudes have changed. We also really don't think that one or the other is better or worse, but those are amongst the examples that we've seen in our research. And so we're just curious to see what you think is most relevant in your country. So please get your votes in. We'll give it another couple of seconds. Very interesting. I think this is also fairly in line with the results that we've seen in our interviews. We see a lot of you say that capacity building for banks, which here comes in first, is of utmost concern, and pretty much every respondent. So this is in line with what we see. We also see insurance and ERM. Everybody sees that this plays a big role in climate change and is interested in learning more. So this is very much in line with what we've seen. What is not so popular, quotas, reducing reserve ratio. I think this will be more, reducing reserve ratio was more for countries that have been struck by disaster. So interesting picture. Sarah, please save this so that we can then, after the conference, ask you again and see if attitudes have changed. So I think that was the last question, wasn't it? Yeah. We've done research amongst our members on the topic on financial inclusion and climate change. Specifically, what we wanted to get a handle on or see clearer is what is the current state of play on policies that our members have enacted on this topic. So we've conducted a survey. So I think just to set the stage, it's very clear that climate change deepens poverty. So the IMF has estimated that without any mitigation efforts, low-income countries may have to face a reduction in income by 9%. So that's significant. Between 2008 and 2014, 185 million people have been displaced by natural disasters that were caused, at least in part, by climate change. And that's 3 times the amount of people displaced by war and conflict. So think about that. The WHO estimates that between 2030 and 2050, climate change may cause 250,000 annual more death than without climate change. So those numbers are not necessarily a reason for optimism. However, we also see that green technologies can contribute to mitigation while at the same time reducing poverty. So the World Bank has given data that 130 million off-grid solar devices have been sold since 2010. So that means that these off-grid solar devices already cover 17% of the global potential market. So this is not an idea anymore. This is happening. And we also see that solar irrigation systems, so the solar irrigation pumps that can be bought on credit, they can be paid off within a couple of years and then double or even triple income of agricultural families. So this has a big power to contribute to development. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are things that can be done. So we've seen in our network that certain members have raised the issue of climate change since before 2015. So for example, Bangladesh Bank, and Alfred already mentioned it before, has told us about what they've been doing and has encouraged us to bring the topic to the fore, and we've done that. So we've been discussing this in Maputo at the GPF in 2015. We had a session here in Fiji in 2016 at the GPF. And so we've created at least critical mass amongst members that there is a recognition that the topic is important, which culminated in the adoption of the Sharm El Sheikh Accord in 2017 in Egypt. So our members have subscribed to the idea that it's important to work on the topic. But now, I think we're taking the next step. We've secured funding from the German Ministry of Environment, and I think we're ready to take global responsibility, and also we're ready to be a leader and to take leadership, policy leadership amongst the network. We also see significant interest of funders mostly that come from Europe, that also have a lot to share in this area. I think it's no surprise that the European funders would be interested in this topic, also because European central banks have been playing a leading role. So we see a lot of potential, not only for getting funding for the work that we do, but also for intellectual exchange. The funders, they offer of their central banks in their countries to share experiences with us, but they're also very curious to hear what is going on in your network. What can you share with us? So we expect that there will be a two-way conversation with governments in Europe that express interest on this topic. So now I come to the survey. We have done a survey across our membership, and again, the focus of the questions are threefold. First, we would like to see what have our members done on the topic of climate mitigation? What are the policies they have enacted to advance climate mitigation? The second topic that we like to investigate is what are financial sector policies that aid the building of resilience and adaptation? And thirdly, I think it's important to restate that our focus is individual and SMEs. And you see in this graphic, the world of green finance and the world of financial inclusion, they overlap. What we are interested in is at that space in between. There, we want to shed light on it. A lot of good work has been done on green finance on capital markets and stuff. And I think that is very complementary to what it is that we're doing, but we are more focusing on how individuals and SMEs are affected by this topic. So we've interviewed more than 20 experts from 12 members so far. This is still a research that's ongoing, so we have not closed this. We're still conducting interviews, and I would very much encourage the AFI members in this room that have not had interviews with us to schedule interviews. So Sarah is around to make appointments. We really would like to hear what you've done. We have scheduled some interviews this week with our consultants in Sub-Saharan Africa, so this is still ongoing. We hope to increase the sample size significantly. I think one of the points that I would like to make here is that this list of countries, this list of AFI members that is still growing, but nevertheless, these are the countries that we rely on in multiplying your knowledge within the network. So we really count on the network effect that AFI can play and on you. Many of the countries in this list are here in this room today, that you share this, you help us multiply your experiences, you help us inspire other members so that we really can capitalize on the power of AFI, of the network effect that we offer with 100 members. So thanks in advance for that, and we're looking forward to the work that's coming. So let me come to the findings. I think I've been in each and every one of these interviews, and what struck me most is that most of the interviewees, I think everybody except one, see climate change as a threat to inclusive development in their country. And they also have shared that they feel a pressure to respond to this threat. So, you know, we've seen, what struck me is that the specificity of the answers that our members gave. So you wouldn't necessarily expect that financial regulators have specific stories to tell, but we had so much of them. We had the typhoons in Philippines, the storms in the Pacific, the hailstorms and climate change in Armenia. So you name it, rising sea level in Bangladesh. So I was actually surprised to see that much specificity from financial regulators on this topic. So the more we worked on this, the more we were convinced that, whoa, this is something that actually really affects our members. And also because it affects the financial sector, so I think especially the case of Armenia, we'll hear more about this, how this has systemic implications. So this is not just a development issue, this is a financial system, if push comes to shove, a systemic issue. So the second finding is that 40% of respondents actually explicitly link financial inclusion, their financial inclusion strategy, to climate change. And they do so by mentioning the word climate change explicitly or the environment. So that's the 40%. But we have a good number more beyond this 40% that implicitly address climate change by, for example, agricultural insurance, climate insurance, not saying the word, but dealing with issues that have to do with the topic. So the explicitly and implicitly go way over half. And then we have a few others that have green finance strategies and financial inclusion strategies in parallel. And then we've also seen sustainable finance roadmaps, like here in Fiji, for example. So I think there's two main trends here. One is that financial inclusion strategies increasingly mention climate change, but there is a more overarching trend that financial sector strategies generally become greener. I think those are the two things that we see from this specific point. And so now I think we come to the meat of the findings. We've categorized, or we see that the policies that our members mention can fall under four broad buckets. provide, promote, protect, PPP, and then we have environmental risk management. So under provide, we mean the provision of credit either directly or mandated through the financial system. And there we see lending quotas, refinancing facilities for green lending, or refinancing facilities for reconstruction. Most of the time, these refinancing facilities provide subsidized credit for the financial sector to on-lend. But then we also see regulators that take a little bit of a more hands-off approach and say, we're not going to get into interventionist policies, for lack of better words, but we actually want the private sector to do this. So we see, and that's very much in line with your answers, a lot of regulators provide capacity building to the financial sectors on green lending, because this is something that not everybody automatically knows how to do. They also employ moral suasion, where they signal that providing green lending is a public good, and signal to the financial sector that this is expected or viewed positively if they get into it. So then we see innovation investment funds, but also in the reconstruction space, some regulators reduced reserve ratio or even the base interest rate post-disaster to encourage lending that aids reconstruction. So this is creative. And then the last point, I put it there also under promotion, is data collection and dissemination, because I think central banks that collect how their financial sectors lend in these areas and mirroring it back at the financial system, that creates a benchmark. And creating benchmarks also encourages banks and the financial sector to do better. So I think data collection and dissemination can be put under the promotional bucket. And then the third bucket is protection. We see all types of climate risk insurance, microinsurance, agricultural insurance, but also G2P transfers via mobile money post-disaster. And in one country, we even saw that the government allowed premature pension fund withdrawal to assist reconstruction efforts. So this is building resilience in the short term, maybe at the cost of longer term resilience. So these policy solutions all can be discussed, and we should do that. But so this is the state of play that we see. And then the fourth bucket is environmental risk management. So we see Bangladesh Bank has done it, and we're very soon in this session we'll have the opportunity to hear more about it. Not many of interviewees have been issued specific policies, but we hear that there is interest. And we also hear from our members they want to learn more about it. So I think this is a topic that deserves separate mention. So now let me give you specific examples. Bangladesh Bank and Reserve Bank of Fiji have mandated lending quotas of 5, respective 2% of loan portfolio that banks are required to go into green lending. We also see refinancing facilities for reconstruction in Vanuatu. Central Bank of Jordan has made refinancing available for innovative programs, including renewable energy. So this is on the provision side. On the promotion side, examples for central banks or financial regulators that are taking a more encouraging approach is Philippines, Morocco, and Guatemala. Many others, but those are the ones that focus on these interventions. Capacity building, awareness raising, moral suasion, that really try for the financial sector to do it themselves. We see innovation investment funds in Morocco, which is quite interesting for innovative technologies, including renewable energy. And then I mentioned it before, Vanuatu was the country that actually reduced the reserve requirements and base interest rates to aid reconstruction efforts. So this is also everything under the promotional bucket. And specific examples from the network under the protection, is Armenia with their agricultural insurance. I'm very happy that we'll hear more about it today. Our host, Fiji, has provided the Help for Homes program, post-disaster G2P via mobile money, but there's also a microinsurance framework here in this country. In the Philippines, we also see microinsurance and also mobile money post-disaster. And the example for early withdrawal of pension we've seen in Vanuatu. So lastly, the examples on environmental risk management, where we see guidelines is in Bangladesh Bank. 2017, Bangladesh Bank actually increased their focus from environmental considerations to social considerations. Other countries that have expressed interest in this topic are Morocco and Costa Rica. So one point that may be interesting for this audience, it's not directly linked from financial inclusion, but it's a broader observation, is that most financial regulators don't formally contribute to national climate policy. So we've discussed this with members, and only two mentioned that they played formal contribution to climate policy. Most of them don't. So we think that as financial sector regulators become more active in the area of climate change, there may be scope for them to contribute to more formally to national climate policy. And so now let me wrap up by presenting the preliminary findings. First, our members see climate change as a threat and feel the pressure to respond. 40% link financial inclusion strategies to climate change. But we see a larger trend of financial sector strategies becoming more green. There is a clear trend of AFI members enacting green financial inclusion policies in the adaptation side, but also mitigation. And we can summarize it into provision, promotion, protection, and environmental risk management. Only one country in our network has actually what resembles a definition of green finance, so that's also interesting. We'll hear more about it in this session. There's scope for AFI members to contribute more to formal climate policy processes, and we also see that there is a growing demand on peer learning, on green financial inclusion. So that's clearly something that came out in our conversations. So with that, let me conclude my presentation and dive into two examples that we've seen in our network. We've also very recently written case studies on these two examples. So now may I please ask to the stage DG Esala from Reserve Bank of Fiji and Mr. Mohammed Hassan from Bangladesh Bank, so that we can discuss these two cases in more detail. And we have the opportunity to take a deep dive and give you a flavor of what's in the case studies that are available on our website. So we hope that you download it and read them. So may I please ask you to the stage so that we get a discussion going on specific examples.